The bright side of addiction is recovery, and recovery is its own best reward. Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Scott, and if you're new to our podcast, we welcome you. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if you're in recovery or know or love someone who is, or you simply want to know more about the recovery process, or maybe you're a bit concerned about someone you know or love who is harmfully using alcohol or any other drug, this is the podcast for you. We carry the message of hope and the promise of recovery. And a reminder, you can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. Recent episodes have featured interviews with rock and roll legend Dion DiMucci from Dion and the Belmonts. He just celebrated 57 years of recovery. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon. Broadway legend Ben Vereen. Grammy Award winners Bonnie Raitt and Judy Collins. Plus conversations with everyday people in long-term recovery. And we have one of those today, sharing their story, their insight, their path. In this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast, a conversation with a man who fought the odds and won, big time. His name is Mario Chajon, and I'm excited for you to meet him in this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast. Here's a quick clip from today's podcast.
I didn't get a driver's license at 16, like all my friends in high school, because by 14, by 15, the way I was drinking and the way I began to use drugs, I didn't think I would live to see 16. I was shocked when I turned 16. I was shocked when I turned 17, 18, 19. I didn't get a driver's license until I was like 21, 22, when I thought I better get a driver's license. I'm going to need it for work.
My conversation with Mario coming right up. And we will conclude our podcast with some thoughts on recovery and the 12-step programs from actor Danny Trejo. He has over 50 years in continuous recovery. Our website is recoverycoasttocoast.org if you'd like to help us out financially, or if you know of a foundation that might be interested in underwriting our program, we would be ever so grateful. A reminder, our email address is recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net, and we would love to hear from you. Recovery Coast to Coast, supported by Sundown M Ranch, one of America's oldest, least expensive, and most successful treatment programs. They're listed in Newsweek magazine's recent list of America's top treatment providers. I've sent many people who need treatment to Sundown for one simple reason. I know that it works. It's one of the most affordable programs around. They are not-for-profit, so their focus is solely on recovery. And last but certainly not least, they build a bridge for the patient following inpatient treatment back into the family, the community, and the workplace. Now, they started treating adults, adolescents, and families many, many years ago. In fact, they took in their first patient way back in 1968. They treat people with empathy, compassion, and the utmost confidentiality. The treatment at Sundown is abstinence-based, it's 12-step centered, provided by an outstanding staff that is well paid, and they love their job. In fact, a number of them actually went through treatment at Sundown many years ago. Their intake staff, wonderful. They help with the often tangled-up process of sorting out insurance approvals, so family members don't have to. With some 200,000 individual and family members going through the successful treatment program at Sundown, by golly, their success and their longevity speaks for itself. Finding a treatment program can be daunting. There are thousands, literally thousands, of addiction treatment programs around the country. Many of them are very, very good. Many others are simply not. They simply treat and release. They're more interested in getting the next patient in to fill a bed. Now, if you're considering treatment for yourself or a friend or loved one, by all means do your research, but please consider Sundown M Ranch. It's where recovery begins. Sundown.org. Well, it's conversation time. I invite you to join me for a cup of coffee and meet via this podcast Mario Chajon. He lives his recovery proud and out loud. Let's listen.
I do live a day at a time. I got sober on October 16th, 1986. That date is basically a random pick date. I think I might have gotten sober before. I really don't know. All I remember that it was before Halloween that year. All I remember that it was in the middle of the week, and it was a day like any other day. And I was born in Guatemala. I got to the United States when I was 13 years old. I could not speak a word of English. I moved to Chicago. That's where my mother lived and my stepfather. I grew up in a regular household. My father is a recovering alcoholic in Guatemala, or I don't know if he's still alive. I lived with my grandparents, and I was not shown how to drink at home. That's not part of my life. I was grown up with decent morals. I grew up watching my mother go to work. I grew up watching my mother do the right thing, except that when I took my first drink at 14 or so, I changed. I was tall. I could speak English. I lost my accent. I was handsome. I became everything I wanted. I went to school, had an easy time, not because I knew the language, but because math was easy, athletics were easy. I was in sports. I excelled in those areas, and the magic happened.
This was all in Chicago, Mario?
Yeah, well, I started sniffing glue when I was about 6, 7 years old. Just happened. It's just one of those things. I was putting together a little model when I was living in Guatemala, and the glue just hits you, and you're immediately lightheaded, transported. You don't know that you're getting high, but you're getting high, and then you want to sniff glue again, and you want to sniff glue again, and they call it huffing. I didn't know that, but I wasn't building models all the time. I was playing sports. I was going to school. I grew up in my grandfather's home because my mother had immigrated to the United States. And between that age of 5, 6 until I was 13, our visas were getting processed so that we could immigrate. So by the time those years that it took to have the visas arranged, I lived with my grandparents. And my grandfather was just this marvelous man. He worked for the railroad, didn't have a formal education. He had a lot of kids. And I saw him go to work, and occasionally I would go to work with him on weekends after he worked for his regular job at the railroad. I would watch how people respected him and asked his opinion, even though he basically didn't have formal education. He was respected by people that he worked for, and I loved that. I really liked that. I wanted to be him, but of course, in time, the last thing I wanted to do was work like my grandfather did. Working 7 days a week to support his family, to support his children, to support the extra mouths, my sister and I, that lived with him. My mother, like I said, was here in the United States, and we were having our visas processed. And that takes a long time. That takes a very, very long time. So we reunited with my mother and my stepfather when I was 13. But I lived at my grandfather's from the time I was basically a few weeks old.
In Guatemala?
In Guatemala.
So what happened when you came to the States in Chicago at an early age?
Culture shock. That's what happened. Because I'm native Spanish speaker, I'm hearing a foreign language. Whenever I heard someone say hi, I thought that they were hurt because in Spanish, I means ouch. So I'm shocked. I don't know anything. I don't have friends. I can't make friends because I can't communicate. And of course, my mother's trying to protect us until we go to school. But athletics, once again, being able to move about, I learned to go to the playground, learned to play basketball, learned to play baseball, played soccer, played volleyball. That's what happened. That's the thing that kept me in touch with everybody else. While not being able to speak face to face, I'm able to pass a ball. I'm able to receive a pass. I'm able to communicate without saying a word via athletics. I went to high school hardly speaking any English. I went to one of the best high schools in the country. You had to test in to go in. Lane Technical High School in Chicago only accepted students if they tested it. We had 5,000 students under one roof at the same time.
Wow.
At that time, we were the largest high school in the country. Unbelievable place. When I walked in, talk about shock, you look down the halls, close to the ceiling, all the trophies. the history of the school, the city championships, the sectional championships, the state championships, a lot of history in that school. And I was able to get in by the skin of my teeth because I was an athlete. Not that I was privileged and they don't let you pass classes. They don't let you do that. But I was able to pass, and I was able to go on to college. Again, I was only accepted into college because it was a state school. They couldn't reject me, basically. I went to Northern Illinois University after I graduated from college. But while I was in high school, what I became was that kid that can be an athlete by day and a burnout by after practice. The thing about Chicago, and this is the thing about maybe many other inner cities, you don't have to speak the language. You can go to a liquor store, put money on a counter, point to something, and they'll give it to you. You don't have to be 21. Laws are more strict today in certain areas, but certainly not in all areas, I imagine. And also, you learn math very quickly because they're not going to give you change. So if something costs $5 and you put a 10 in, you don't get change. You better get as close to that magic number that you see listed. At that time when I was underage and I put my money on the counter, it also took a little confidence to do that because not everyone was willing to go in. But I did. I didn't care. I wanted my next drink. I wasn't going to stand in front of a 7-Eleven and give someone change or money hoping that they come by and give me a six-pack. You don't buy at 7-Elevens. You go to the liquor store. That's my experience.
You said you started drinking your first drink at the age of 14.
Yes.
What were the circumstances around that, Mario?
My stepfather used to drink. My mother didn't like that my stepfather drank. He hid his liquor, and I would find it. The breakfast of champions to me is Fruit Loops and gin. So when Snoop Dogg began to sing about gin and juice, I had invented that long ago. Gin and juice, breakfast of champions. That's what I did. I looked around the house until I found his gin, and I used to drink that. And he could not go to my mother and said, Mario stole my liquor. I knew that. I became an expert at finding hidden liquor.
Did he confront you on any of that, Mario?
Not at all. He knew that my mother was not a drinker. He knew that my mother didn't approve of drinking. It was causing a lot of problems at home. My stepfather, of course, physically abused my mother. That caused a lot of rifts. I used to try to fight him, but of course, I'm just a little skinny 5'5", 5'6", 120-pound kid, and he's a grown man. So that was blind courage I had. But I felt that I needed to stand up for my mother. I needed to stand up for my sister.
What did the alcohol do for you early on?
It changed me. It made me brave. It made me tall. It made me funny. It gave me language skills I didn't have. It made me speak English. It made me handsome. It made me everything that I imagined I wanted to be. It gave me courage. It gave me a sense of being I didn't have. It gave me the esteem I didn't possess. That's what alcohol did for me.
When did the problems start with alcohol?
As soon as I began stealing it. Because now I'm thinking, where am I going to get it? How am I going to find it? What am I going to do for it? So the more I sought it, the more I was willing to do whatever it took to get it. That's what it did for me. It gave me a false sense that I could do anything.
Did you get in trouble with the law at all?
I was fortunate enough that I really didn't. I drank and drove every day, of course, once I could. But let me go back a little bit. I didn't get a driver's license at 16, like all my friends in high school, because by 14, by 15, the way I was drinking and the way I began to use drugs, I didn't think I would live to see 16. I was shocked when I turned 16. I was shocked when I turned 17, 18, 19. I didn't get a driver's license until I was like 21, 22, when I thought I better get a driver's license. I'm going to need it for work. But no, I didn't get in trouble with the law. As a matter of fact, the law helped me. There was a time I began to work very early in my life. I began to work while I was in grammar school. I was a freshman in high school, and we had a blizzard, the blizzard of 79. I was found in a snowbank by a policeman who was the father of a kid that I went to school with, and he brought me home. I fell face down, but because I threw up, it created a little airspace gap in the snowdrift that I fell into, and I was able to breathe. I was brought home. My mother hosed me down in the bathtub. I had, of course, pissed my pants. I had shit my pants. I was bloody. That was one of my close encounters with the law. I was a fairly good law-abiding citizen. I mean, I broke the law. I'm saying I didn't. I just happened to be one of those persons that didn't mouth off to the police, that didn't reject authority per se. I didn't like authority. I didn't like to follow rules. I broke them every time I had a chance, but I wasn't belligerent. I became more and more belligerent as time went on, but I never felt that I was above the law. That I saw enough bad things happen to other people that it kept me scared, kept me in check. That's basically what happened. So I did what many of us do. We drive drunk and we don't care about the consequences. We go around the car, we check it and hope that it doesn't have dents or blood. I was a petty thief. I didn't steal cars. I stole what was in cars. Because that's what I needed to do to get my next fix of what I needed at the time.
Take me back to October of 1986, early in the month. What led up to that infamous day on the 16th?
Absolutely nothing in particular. It was a day like any other day. I had drank the day before. I was at work. I drank at work, drank after work. And after I finished working that day, I used to live in Chicago, close to the lake. And I used to work in one of the suburbs west of Chicago. I went to work. I went to a bar after work. I went to another bar after work near the airport because, of course, it wasn't happening at the first bar. It was going to happen at the next bar. Whatever it is that it's going to happen, it's always in the next place. It's never where you are. So I'm at the next bar by the airport, and it wasn't happening at that bar. I better go downtown, get on the highway, and drive from the airport to downtown Chicago. Very popular bar at that time called the Limelight. It was the in spot. It was what clubs have become, the velvet ropes, the carpet to get in, the bouncers. Going to the Limelight, and it's not happening at the Limelight after a couple of hours. I need to go back to the suburbs. I need to go back near the airport and go drive back. And of course, any place I am, I'm not just having one drink and nursing it like most people do. I'm drinking because I drink. Go back to the suburbs. It's not happening in the suburbs. Drive back to a local bar. I ran into some friends, and by this time it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30, and they're going to have a party. And a friend's home, and of course I'm going to go. And I went to the party, and about 6 o'clock in the morning, it was beginning to be light. I remember going and saying, I gotta go. It's hot. But basically what I'm looking for is the next place that's going to have it going on. And I remember clicking at my seatbelt, driving away, and coming to. The sun was very, very bright when I came to. I'm at a stoplight. There's a crossing guard holding the sign that says stop, white glove in front of my car, kids crossing the street, and I have no idea how I got there. Next thing that happened is hours later, I hear banging, loud banging. And I was driving down a street, and I kind of look in the rearview mirror, and I see a couple of city workers with shovels standing in a ditch that they were repairing and looking at me. And I had hit cars to the left, to the right, down a wrong way street, and I guess I nearly ran them over. And of course that didn't faze me. I couldn't see anything. The hood of the car is blocking my view. And I don't know how I drove to a gas station, and I asked them to please repair the car because I had to go to work that day. Of course, they called my boss, and I once again was going to work in the front seat of a tow truck with a car wrecked behind me. What resonated was, of course, the crossing guard holding that sign and seeing the kids. And the next thing that happened was that my boss, I worked for a company that was sort of a money laundering place for some fine Italian fellows that own a lot of car dealerships, that own a lot of businesses in Chicago. And Miles Diamond, big Jewish fellow, 6'1", 6'2", 275, 300 pounds. He's holding me, and he's grabbed me, and he's holding me, and he's almost turning his back, and then he lets me go, and he grabs my boss, and he says, Chuck, don't do it. Too many witnesses. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. So after he let me go, he grabbed Chuck because my boss was going to kill me. He was just going to beat me to a pulp. They were probably going to throw me in some car never to be seen again. And that didn't matter to me. I was at the point in my life that I didn't care whether I lived or died. And that's the worst kind of person you can run in life, one who doesn't care. I don't care what will happen to me or anyone else. But the idea that he's not worth it, too many witnesses, that really, really stuck. So what happened next was that he said, get out of here. If I ever see you again, no one else will see you again. In different words, basically, just get out of here. And there was this fellow, Nestor Corpus, and he said, come, I will give you a ride home. Nestor was this really nice, gentle Filipino man. He put me in the front of his car, clicked the seatbelt on. My hand is shaking. I'm shaking. But I've been shaking for a long time. This wasn't the first time I had to shake. I'm a little bit over 25 years old. And he begins to drive me home. And he begins to tell me about his life. He begins to tell me how he used to drink, how he doesn't drink now. He's not in any recovery program, but he has a deeply religious belief. And he's telling me how when his first son was born, he asked God to help him stop drinking because he can't afford to drink a case of beer every day and smoke cigarettes. And he said, I asked God to help me, to let this be my last pack of cigarettes, to let this be my last beer. And all I'm thinking about, all I hear is the chatter in my mouth, teeth chattering. And he said, all I had to do was say, help me. I turned towards him because I couldn't face him, but I turned to look at him. And all I wanted to say was, shut up. But instead what I said was help. And just like that, for a split second, my teeth didn't chatter. I had a sense of calm, a sense of peace. And I didn't know what I was saying help to. I had no idea, but I said help. And the next thing he said, and after you ask for help, when you get it, don't forget to say thank you. And again, I'm blank, and I said thanks. And again, for a split second, I didn't shake. For a split second, I didn't hear my teeth. And then I began to hear my teeth again, and he continued to talk, and he continued to tell me what happened. But for that second, I felt that sense of peace. I asked for help, and I said thank you. And I didn't know to what I said it. He drove me home. Of course, you know what, making thousands of dollars and living at mom's because I spend it faster than I make it, the only place that I could be. And I shook at my mother's couch for the next 3-4 days.
You never went into treatment, I take it? You went into the rooms?
No, yes, I never went into treatment. I was shaking. And that Saturday night, I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to go kill myself so I didn't have to put anyone else, my mother, my sister, through my BS that I pulled all the time. I also was too scared to die, but I also wanted to drink. So I did what I've done before. I went into my mother's purse, but this time I didn't steal anything from it. This time I took out her telephone book and I went through the book and I found a telephone number and it said Al-Anon, and I called it and they put me on hold. And my thought was, if this were suicide hotline, I'd be dead. Of course, that's, it's all about me and what are you going to do for me? And they put me on hold. They took my name and they took my number and they said, you will get a call from someone tomorrow. And I know that this is midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, but I felt better having made that call. That happens when we take some kind of action, when we're not locked in our thoughts. Better things happen when we reach out, sometimes to help someone or to be helped. Something changes. So the next day I get a phone call from this lady and she began to ask me questions. I don't know what she asked. All I remember is that she said, this sounds like an alcoholic problem. I'll have my husband call you in a few minutes. And once again, I'm upset because how dare you tell me that you're not going to do for me what I want done for me, right? So I hung up the phone and I just hung up the phone and taken 2 steps away and the phone rang again. It was her husband and he began to talk to me. His name was Jeff. And he said, I can come and pick you up. No, I don't need any help. No, I don't need anything. No, I'm fine. No, I don't know what happened. It must have been someone else who called yesterday. How did you get my number? So he said, look, there's an AA meeting close to you. And he gave me an address. It was somewhere between a half mile and a mile away from where I lived. And he said, there's a meeting today at 8 o'clock. Why don't you go? And I agreed to that. I agreed to go to that meeting. Now, here's the story of my life in a nutshell. I've been late for my funeral so many times, so many times, and I'm thankful for that. So that Sunday, I went to that meeting, except that I got there when they were locking the door. The last person was locking the door. Nobody else was around. Everybody's gone. It was a storefront on Clark Street. It was the Roger Spark Alamo Club. So the guy stood there with me for a few minutes. I don't know what we talked about, but I remember he reached in his pocket and he gave me a meeting schedule for Chicago. He says, this is where we have meetings. You can find them not only in our neighborhood, but everywhere. He said, we have a meeting. We have a meeting at 6. We have another one at 8. Come back tomorrow. I had not been invited to go anywhere in a long time. You can put $100 in a bar on when you feel so bad people get away from you. So I know how people kind of left my surroundings. And here's a guy that said, come back tomorrow. And I did. I went back the next day, and I remember Jerry. Jerry was this guy that stuttered. After the meeting, no, I had no problem saying I'm an alcoholic. Never did. I would go to a bar before it opens. I'd be shaking, and the bartender would say, why are you here again? And I'd say, I'm an alcoholic and I need a drink. I had no problem saying that. And I remember after the meeting, because everybody spoke, it went very fast in Chicago. Everybody speaks, just about. Whether you say, my name is so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic, and you shut up and it goes to the next person. Thank you. And I said, I'm an alcoholic. I probably ramble on about something. But after the meeting, Jerry came to me. I don't know if he's still alive or not. And he put his hand on something I haven't had in a long time, human touch. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, it's okay. Come to meetings and change your life completely. I didn't understand much. Here was this man making me an offer that I felt I couldn't refuse. First, how did he know that I had nowhere to go, that I was unwanted? When he said, come to meetings, he gave me a place to go. He didn't tell me don't drink. He didn't tell me stop. He didn't tell me I better quit. He didn't tell me you must not. He told me that it was okay. It's okay, don't drink. He didn't force anything on me. But most important, he knew that I liked absolutely nothing about my life. Nothing. In time, of course, I've come to know that to change my life completely, I must admit who I am, what I am. I must confront the fact that I have no guiding light. I have no God. I have nothing, that I'm flying blind. I must come to believe in something, the God of my understanding, that I must objectively look at those things, that I inventory them, let them know what I think I see, what I believe I see, and in fact, some of the things I see, and then we'll look. In time, I came to see that what I needed to change my life were the steps. We see them all the time. We just don't recognize them. Again, it was like English to me, a foreign language, something I didn't know, something I didn't understand, So Jerry made me that offer. He gave me the ability to change my life completely. He wasn't my sponsor. My first sponsor died. My first sponsor, he said, get a sponsor, look for someone that you want to be like. And I chose this guy that looked well, spoke well, dressed well, blind following the blind. That Christmas, he went on vacation. Then he came back and he said, hey, I drank over vacation. Glenn, why don't you take this guy because I can't be his sponsor anymore. He passed me on to a guy named Glenn who took me to the first 5 steps.
What was the first year like for you, Mario?
My first year was like shake and bake. I think that one of the things that I did was I began to identify. And when the term shake and bake came on in the movie Talladega Nights, I thought, oh my God, it's like my first year of sobriety. I had my hand under my legs because I was shaking. I drank so much coffee, smoked a lot of cigarettes. I used to be a heavy smoker. And my first year was nearly unemployed for the whole year. And I went to a ton of meetings. I went to meetings in the morning. I went to meetings at noon. I went to meetings at night. I had no job. I had nothing to do, but I knew where I could get free coffee at AA meetings. So my first year was going to a lot of meetings. I didn't have any money, and I felt guilty not having money to put in the basket. So my sponsor said, you wash the ashtrays, you set up the room, you break the room, you do whatever they need. And that's what my first year was like. It was magic. I felt wanted. I felt needed. That's what it was like.
Service work.
I didn't know it was service work. I just thought it was washing the ashtrays, washing the coffee cups, straightening the chairs. I felt that they told me, show up early. Someone needs to talk to you. I didn't know who. They just told me, show up. They just said, do this. I do it. But you know what? No one told me, let's go rob a 7-Eleven. I don't remember people going, hey, you know what? There's this place that we can go rip off. It wasn't that, because the people that were there early and the people that were staying late were not making those kinds of plans. What happened was that at one point I told them, no, I can't go to coffee. I don't have any money. And they said, we'll buy you a cup of coffee. Man, you're going to make me cry. So when you're in a position to buy someone a cup of coffee, you buy them a cup of coffee.
Fast forward to your last year, your present year, your 39th year. How is your recovery today different, and how has it progressed over the 39 years?
A step at a time, a day at a time. I see myself more energetic than I was then. I'm more consistent. I'm off work this morning, and the first thing I said, because I work in a very, very small group with a very small team, I texted my boss and I said, I don't have plans for today. If someone doesn't show up, let me know. I'll be there. I have to work this afternoon. I work a second job. My boss there knows that I'm going to show up. I'm not going to call in sick. Today, I see the miracles everywhere that I didn't see in the beginning. I see it in songs. I see it in books. I see it in movies. I see something on the street, and I see a parent holding a kid's hand, showing them how to cross a street. I recognize things that I didn't. It's almost the same sense of wonder that I had in my first years. Like, wow, there's free coffee. How did I get here? I didn't know that a contribution, bought coffee, pay the rent, those things were foreign to me. The most spiritual thing that has happened to me is that I've learned how to be self-supporting through my own contribution so that I can contribute elsewhere. I'm sitting at home, something that I never thought I have, in my own place to live. I'm at peace, not having to go. I'm missing out on something more exciting is happening, something different. I'm learning to play the ukulele. So I'm kind of sitting here, just strumming on an ukulele. I'm at peace with that. I don't have to have a flash car. The bright lights don't rule me. I don't have to go look for excitement. I don't have to think that I'm missing out on things. I've become a worker amongst workers. I've become a human being in the human race. I've become a decent human being. It often happens to me that it's the things that I don't think I want that come into my life that end up being the things that not only I needed, but ultimately turn out to be much, much better than the best I can come up with.
Mauai, you have been sober 39 years. What does recovery mean to you today?
One, I don't take anything for granted. Nothing. I don't take for granted that every breath I take is bonus. Two, that I haven't found a better way to live. I already looked for that long before I started doing a day at a time. And three, that why would I want to live without this? Why? Do I want to be shaking again? Do I want to be unemployed and unemployable? Do I want to be suicidal? Do I want to have people that I love and that they love me worry about me? I've already done that. Recovery means a peace of mind that I can't buy with money. Recovery means that not only can I do for myself, but if possible, I can do for someone else. That I can tell someone, look, I've been here. I've been where you are. It may be difficult at times, but we can get through this together. We can do this. I know you don't have faith right now, but I have faith for the both of us until you have the faith that you're going to need. But you're going to have to find your own faith too, because we don't sell it. We don't package it. This is something that we find a day at a time. We find courage. It means the world to me.
What do you say to someone who says, I've tried AA and it doesn't work for me?
We don't have all the answers. We're not the cornerstone for everyone. There are other means. I have friends who don't drink and they don't come to AA. I have friends that have come to AA and left AA. AA is the kernel that's going to pop into what you need. You may need a family. You may want a family. You may need religion. You may need whatever it is that you need. We're the starting place. But for me, the starting place has so much to offer that I don't know that I can't live without it. There are so many ways to find recovery. I have friends that work in the field of recovery, and they help their clients get started, and they don't necessarily have to come to AA. I think that they miss out on a great deal by not coming. But again, it's their life. I have my life. That's the short of that. The long answer is much more complicated. I don't want to have to take the new drugs to recover. I don't want to have to go through all the suffering. I find that this is a very, very good starting place, and it just continues to grow.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with Mario. He's a hell of a guy. By the way, I want to remind listeners of this podcast, if you would like to tell your story of recovery, regardless of the path you've chosen, as long as you've been in continuous recovery for a year or more, drop us a note at Recovery Coast to Coast, one word, at Comcast.net. Coming up next, actor Danny Trejo speaks up and speaks out about 12-step recovery in just 30 seconds.
Are you afraid? Afraid of life without drugs and alcohol? There is help and hope at Sundown M Ranch. At Sundown, the focus is on you and your disease. You will learn how to live without depending on drugs and alcohol. Sundown M Ranch is nationally recognized for effective and affordable alcohol and drug treatment programs. Reclaim your life. Replace your fears with hope. Go to www.sundown.org right now to learn more.
And now, as promised, some interesting comments from actor Danny Trejo.
I knew about 12-step program. I walked into my first 12-step program at 15 years old. And so I knew about them. And I knew what they offered, and I knew what happened when you left them. They tell you, if you leave this program, you will die, go insane, or go to jail. And I proved that right. It wasn't like, they're lying. Every time I left, I went to jail.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please share it with others via social media or simply by telling someone about it. You can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org, O-R-G. Now, if you'd like to get in touch, our email is recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. Also, please hit the subscribe or follow button. It's free, and you'll be notified the next time we publish a podcast. If you're considering treatment for a friend or a loved one, be sure and visit NAATP.org/AID. That stands for the Addiction Information Directory. It's a list of those treatment programs that adhere to the strict ethical guidelines. One of them, of course, is Sundown M Ranch, but there are thousands of other good treatment programs as well. And join us next time for America's Voice for Recovery, Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. And another shout out to our sponsoring organization, Sundown M Ranch, where recovery begins. Sundown.org. I'm Neil Scott, reminding you to stay healthy, live in gratitude, and be kind to others. Remember, the bright side of addiction is recovery. Pass it on.